Good morning, everybody. Hope you're having a great start to your day. So this week's Torah portion is the portion of Noach, as we spoke already yesterday. And there's a very enigmatic verse that the rabbis discuss and the Midrash pipes in on, which is, finally, after 120 years of building the ark, Noah is set to go in. And the verse tells us that Noah and his family and his children came into the ark because of the waters of the flood. Now the rabbis are particular in every nuance, right? There's nothing that's there for no reason. So the rabbis say, I don't understand. Why does the verse have to tell us that Noah went into the ark because of the waters of the flood? We already know that. At the beginning of the portion, God tells Noah, hey, I'm going to bring a big flood, build an ark so you could go into it. Of course he went in because of that. What's the message? And Rashi quotes a very interesting midrash. And the midrash says that Noah was from those who had little faith. He was also from those who had little faith. And Noah wasn't sure, is the water going to come? Is the flood not going to come? And he hinged and he stayed outside. And then, when it started raining heavy, he went in. And that's why the verse says that Noah and his family went into the ark because of the waters of the flood. That basically he only went in when the water was getting heavy and he realized this flood is really coming. And that's why Rashi says he had little faith. He was from those who didn't have enough faith. But the question is really puzzling. First of all, the beginning of the Torah portion tells us that Noah was a righteous person. How many people the Torah tell us? No one. That the Torah says Noach ish tzaddik, he was righteous. So how could we say that Noah had little faith? Secondly, didn't God speak to Noah and tell him everything and tell him what's going to be and tell him to build the ark and who's going to go in? And Noah listened. He sat and built it for 120 years. So how can we say he had no faith? And in general, are we going to say some agnostic guy had conversations with God? What's going on here? How could we say this about Noah? And one of the most daring interpretations comes from Reb Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev. I spoke to you about him last week, the day of his yahrzeit, which was, I think, on Tuesday, the 25th of the month, or it was Monday. He was called the defender of the Jewish people, and in his typical way and Hasidic insight, he takes a total different twist on this midrash and what Rashi's telling us, which is really fascinating and has a powerful message to us. Reb Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev becomes Noach's therapist. And he says, no. You know what Noach's problem was? Of course Noach believed in God. God spoke to him. God says he's righteous. He had conversations with God. He built an ark for 120 years. He says, you know what Noach's problem was? Noach had little faith in himself. Noach said, me? Who am I? He lacked confidence and faith in his ability, in his strength. That's what Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Berditchev says in this revolutionary idea, that Noah wasn't someone who lacked faith in God. His faith in God was complete. But his faith in himself was lacking. They say, it's fascinating midrash, and that's how Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Berditchev explains this midrash, that Noah came to Moses, the midrash says, in heaven, and he said, Moses, I'm greater than you, because I was saved in the generation of the flood. So Moses says to him, you kidding me? You were saved from the flood, but you let the whole generation go to hell. He says, me, when the Jews sinned with the golden calf, not only did I pray for myself, I prayed for all of them, and I saved them all. And the Midrash gives a fascinating analogy. It says, imagine there's two people who are captains of a ship, and the ships are sinking. One, the captain saves himself, but the whole ship sinks. And the other, the captain steers the entire ship to safety and saves everyone. Of course, the one who steered the whole ship is greater. So basically, Moses says, what are you talking about? I saved my whole generation. But the question is, why didn't Noah pray for his generation? Why didn't he save his generation? And according to Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Berditchev, that's how he answers it. He says, because Noah didn't have confidence in his strength, in his ability to speak to God and to plead for his people. He didn't realize that as human beings, we're partners in creation. That God gave us the power to change this world, and he made us his partners. And basically, what Yitzchak Berditchev says is sometimes all it takes to destroy a world is the lack of faith in ourselves, in our God-given talents and strength, in what and how much God has faith and belief in us. And that's how he answers the question, he says. That's what it says, that he came in because of the waters of the flood. He was from those who had little faith, and Noah said the whole time, are you kidding me? God's going to save me and nobody else? Who am I anyways? So he waited and he waited and he waited until the waters came and he realized what was happening. You know, they say this story about the CEO whose company was raking up debt and was in crisis, and creditors were all over this CEO, and he was in a very troubling place, and he went to the park and he sat down on a bench engrossed in his thoughts of all the crises, and suddenly this old guy appears and he says, you look very worried. What's bothering you? Maybe I could help you. Yeah, he doesn't want to listen to this old guy, but he says maybe. So he says, you know, this is my problem. I have debt collectors, people that I owe money to. The business is not earning money. I'm a CEO of a big company, but it could all crash. So the guy said, listen, I can maybe help you. He takes out his checkbook and he writes him a check and he hands it to him. He says, meet me back in a year and you'll give it to me back. This is a loan for 1 year. And suddenly the man disappears. The guy looks at the check and he says, oh my gosh, it's a check for $500,000 and it's signed by the famous Rothschild, the wealthy man. He says, oh my gosh, look how much money I have now to back me up to be able to do what I'm able to. But you know what he decides? He says, maybe now that I have this money, he puts the uncashed check in his drawer and he says, let me go get out there. And he gets out there and he renegotiates his debt and he speaks to his creditors and he suddenly starts turning things around, and within a few months the business is turned around and he's earning money again. He didn't even cash the check yet. But the confidence of knowing that let him go. A year later he comes back the same exact place, and he waits for the old man. He wants to thank him. He wants to give him back the check. As he's waiting for the old man starts approaching him, and suddenly this lady runs out and grabs the old man, and she apologizes to him, and she says, oh yeah, I'm sorry, I hope he's not making you crazy. He's a little bit delusional. Many times he thinks he's Rothschild. And the guy suddenly realized, the CEO, that this check that he had for $500,000 that he thought was from Rothschild was from a delusional man that really had no significance. And he suddenly realized that, you know what turned around his business? It wasn't a $500,000 check, because he couldn't even use it. It wasn't even there. It was his renewed confidence in his abilities and his strengths to get things done. And that's what Yitzchak Berditchev says you should know. He says, Noach was mikatnei emunah. Noach's problem was not a lack of faith in God. It was a lack of faith in himself. And the truth is that what Noach didn't know was the relationship between mankind and God and how we're partners. And that if you have faith in God, you have to have faith in yourself, because we're created in the image of God. And we have an infinite part of God's soul within each and every one of us. The old adage, we're getting to winter here, about this new Indian chief, and the tribe comes over to him and say, listen, is it going to be a cold winter? Should we collect wood? He wasn't sure. He was a new Indian chief. He didn't know how to do these things. But he says, to be safe, on the safe side, he says, go collect wood. But then after a few days, he wants to make sure. So he calls the meteorologist. It's high tech, it's new age. And he calls the meteorologist, listen, is it going to be a cold winter? He says, yeah. So he says, no problem. A week later, they come back to him and said, okay, we collected wood. Is it enough, or is it going to be really cold? He says, no, it's going to be really cold, collect more. And then he calls the meteorologist a few days later. He says, are you sure it's going to be really cold? He says, it's going to be freezing. So the third week they come back and they say, okay, we collected even more. What is it? How cold is it going to be? He says, it's going to be freezing. Go collect more. They go collect more. But then he's nervous. He calls the meteorologist the last time. And finally he says to him, are you sure it's going to be freezing? He says, are you kidding me? It's going to be the coldest winter we've ever had. So he says, really? The Indian chief says to the meteorologist, how do you know it's going to be the coldest winter we ever had? He says, you know why? Because the Indians are collecting wood like crazy. Basically, this Indian chief didn't realize the power that he had within him, that the meteorologist was looking after him. Anyways, it's a joke, but the point is a powerful one. Have faith in yourself. You look around the world, you look around what's going on, and so many people are giving up. They say, what could I do to change the dialogue? What could I do to dial down the tone, to bring more kindness, to bring more friendship, to bring more faith, to bring more humanity, to bring more love? And you say, I give up. But the truth is, we have to learn from Noah's mistake. The Torah is telling us that Noah was from those that had little faith, to teach us that we have to have faith in ourselves. We have to learn from Moses, have confidence and strength in our God-given gift and ability to partner with God. And then we can accomplish whatever we want. Have a great day.